is Wednesday, December 1st, and this is the Hudson School Board of Education meeting. Can we please start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to call the meeting to order? Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as stated?
Second.
All in favor? Does anybody have anything they would like to pull from the consent agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated? Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Mrs. Blake? We do not have any items that were removed from the consent agenda this evening, so that brings us to our superintendent's report. Mr. Hochreiter is able to be here tonight, so our superintendent's report will be from Margaret and Lisa. Sorry.
I'm going to give you a quick update on where we are with our Princeton planning. The district has its second early release day of the year on Monday. So we've dedicated those afternoons to Princeton planning in elementary. Teachers are sent and their administrator are sent to their new school for 22-23. So this week, this month, they will be taking on 3 activities. The first activity is to come to some agreements about terminology for PBIS, which is our behavior support plan. And that will be 3 teams, 1 from each school, meeting collaboratively to come up with common language so that it's used across the elementary division. The second team is school-based leadership, and they're looking at opening activities inviting families and kids coming to the school at the end of this school year, as we approach the new school year, etc. The third activity is, sounds like a facilities walk. So again, building based. The administrator and the team that will be housed in that school will be walking the building to make some decisions about best space for support classes, which wing should be 3rd grade, things like that. What do they need that they're seeing maybe is missing that they might have questions about for Anthony Marmini. In addition, we've continued our Google Meets with buildings that are banded as we will be. We had 2 this week. One for the 4-5 building, and this morning we had one for the K1 building. We will continue to have, I think, a few more scheduled. They have been very insightful. I think our staff has asked really great questions about things like leadership, collaboration, schedules, specials. So, and we've invited representatives from on our side, representatives at the grade level, special area representatives, obviously the building administrator. I think it's been very fruitful, very productive, and we'll continue to do so until people feel like they've got some good ideas to put forward that they've learned from their colleagues. So I think that's been really helpful. I enjoyed listening in. So that's my update on that.
The only addition that I can add is, because Margaret kind of took everything, but that's okay, is that we have actually, special ed department, yes, it's really starting with K-5, and really started to drill down with the K-5 ABC. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Where will you be? Who are your teams? And we were actually going to finish up this week, but I'm sorry, on Monday, but the building walkthrough is more important for them to be there. Where would their spaces be? Where would related services be? So they're going to do that, and we'll pull them during a department meeting. But the other thing that we're doing is really looking at our support staff, our mental health staff. Margaret and I had a conversation today. What do we think it's going to look like? I've said my goal is to have a social worker at every building, a psychologist to be shared amongst 2 buildings. I will have a second psychologist shared with the high school and Frank G, but also to make sure our school counselors have been onboarded and are there with our SEL programs, whether it's zones, whether it's second step, any kind of DBT that they're using. So to make sure that we also have that mental health support at each building. Because we know transitions are difficult. We know sometimes it's more difficult for us as adults than it is for the students, but we want to be there to support not only our students, but our adults. So that's where we are on top of everything Margaret's doing on Monday, and our teams are doing on Monday, that we will be meeting with some of our smaller groups, so.
I'm going to say this publicly. I've shared it already with the three principals, so please don't think that I'm running the show on Monday. This is very much the principals' work, and I want to respect that. I've actually stayed away from their time with their new staff to allow them to build that culture without my presence detracting, because if I'm there, they'll ask a lot of questions, and I don't want to take away from the work that they're doing. This is really important. So they've been lovely and shared their agenda with me, which is actually literally Josh's email that I'm reading from. So I know what they're doing because we stay very much in the loop about this, but I really feel important that they have complete control over how this process moves forward as they build a new school culture together. So shout out to Donna, Josh, and Cindy for all of that.
Thank you. Yes.
But Margaret, I thought we were all the elementary schools were using the second step program. So when they want to meet and come up with common language, isn't that sort of already established?
So second step is an SEL program.
Okay.
That's part of their daily social and emotional work. PBIS is a behavior program, so it talks about how do we behave in the cafeteria? What does it look like to wait in line to get on the bus? That kind of thing.
Okay.
There was a little bit of it already in the district, I guess, before I came here. It was there, Carol shaking her head.
Yeah.
But sometimes what happens is over time, it disintegrates a little bit and we start to play with some of the terminology. They felt, and I agree, that it's important that they get back to what are we going to call these things?
Okay.
So as kids move through the schools, it's not oh, wait, that's not what they said last year.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of like when we talk horsemen, you know, in Terrytown. In Terrytown, and we met with them and they talked about we're doing one mascot, and that mascot is going to be the one in every building to lead up to the sailor. So when you think of PBIS, it's what is that terminology? And like Margaret said, but second step is incorporated in that. So if you don't have both of them working together with the same terminology, it's never going to be successful.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to say that I think that the PBS thing is like the wiser is in Furnace Woods, right? And
Oh,
Soar and
Eagle Soar,
EV.
yeah.
Eagles and Wiser.
So it's that type of program.
From meeting. Were there any major concerns from the teachers when they were meeting? Anything that surprises that came out or any comments that?
I would think if you ask them that in each session, people heard, oh, they do that differently. I think that's added to what they need to think about. It's given them some ideas about how people do things differently. Some that I think they'll ponder and some that will be, no, we will worry about that. But I do think it's been interesting because sometimes you get very closeted in your own situation and you don't realize that someone else has reimagined that in a completely different way. So I would say, some of what we heard, we will hold on to and talk about more deeply. Other things we heard are like, yeah, we pretty much know that that's not something we're interested in.
Okay.
So I think it's a little bit
So
of
it was
a mixed
actually-
bag. I thought their questions were great though.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions about the progress of Princeton plan planning? All right, so that concludes our superintendent's report, which will bring us to our presentation and discussion. And tonight we have George Burrows here to talk to us about the town's development plans.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the president and members of the board for inviting me here, and Superintendent Hochreiter to invite me here to talk about what the town's been doing. And I also want to thank all the members of the board because I served as a county legislator for about 14 years. I know what the night meetings are like, working on a budget, and all the stuff you go through. And you guys don't get paid. At least I got a nice $50,000 a year salary for a part-time job. So my hat's off to all of you for what you do for giving your time to the school district. I wanted to start with a presentation update, which you're gonna, if you were here a year or so ago, and I did my last update, you see the same themes are here. Portland Where Life Works is our motto. It's our branding that we've done throughout New York City, all throughout Westchester County and other areas, and it goes into white or blue. Next slide. So I think all of you know this, but this is the message that we send to potential commercial brokers, developers, people that are looking to start a business, relocate a business, or expand a business. And that's that we're primed for investment, that we have a good story to tell. And that story is that we have a very educated and diverse workforce. We have a terrific location because you're less than an hour away from New York City. We have 2 airports, White Plains and Stewart Field, which are in close proximity. We have the only one of 2 Amtrak stops between New York City and Albany. We have a good network of roads. So the location's good. We have a lifestyle that's second to nothing. We have a lot of open space, great recreation, and of course, you all know, we have a great educational system here in Westchester, in Portland. That's great if you're bringing your family here or you're trying to attract employees or a business. We also have not only the location and the lifestyle and the educated workforce, but we also have low taxes, and we do work with Westchester County for incentives. So if you go to the next one, the good news is I know I have to be here for purposes of televising the meeting. The bad news is I can't read what I wrote on these things, but I should know that. As you know, when the town did a master plan about 4 or 5 years, thank you, sir. When the town did their master plan 4 or 5 years ago, they targeted 4 specific areas, 2 of which are very germane to the Henry Hudson School District, and that's the transit orientated and the waterfront sustainability district. So if you go to the next slide for me, which is the transit orientated district. And so we've had some developments there. Unfortunately, we've been working with the owner of, those of you who've been around for a while, I always refer to it as the Tall property, Bobby Tall's property, or Grace Tall's property. It's where the big red house is, right near the train station. We've been trying to work with that person to get some, we've had a few proposals. Of course, we're somewhat limited to what could be done there without sewers. But the good news is, and I think most of you might have heard this, as part of the agreement that was reached between the Entergy, the state, and Riverkeeper, there was some money set aside that was supposed to go to the impacted communities. So $7 million has been given to the town and the village that will be used for, hopefully, for putting together a plan to develop some sewers in the area so that we can really bring in some businesses that will grow, maybe some residential or mixed-use development around the train station. The other thing is that we have been working with a consulting firm, a planning consultant, on trying to make the Hamlet area of Montrose more walkable. And we've been working together with the folks from Montrose Matters as well as the Montrose Business Association. We've had several meetings. There's been several proposals put forth. There's a lot of moving parts right now with it. One thing is whether the ambulance corps building, if we could find another site for them where they could, maybe the town could build another location either by the train station and free up that area on that corner to make it more conducive for professional buildings, maybe sort of an upscale small supermarket, a grocery store, things like that. Put in new sidewalks, a little bit better lighting, make it a little more inviting type area. I met with Richard Becker about 2 days ago, the new supervisor, and he really put an emphasis on, he says, I drive down 9A and I see all of these empty storefronts or underutilized properties. So I'm going to be working with the town assessor and try to approach some of them diplomatically, the owners there, to see if there's something we can do to help them attract something to occupy that storefront so that we can increase our tax rateables, but more than that, bring a vibrancy to the area a little bit. You have little pockets here, like right outside here. I think the high school attracts a lot of the little businesses, but there's those pockets in between where there's just these storefronts that are vacant. And it's, what happens in business is when people always say, well, this business doesn't want another business there. That's not true. They don't want to be alone. It's almost like when you go to a pool party. Until somebody jumps in, nobody else really goes in. So if we can develop some of those spots, it'll just bring more and more to the area. The next slide. So in the mod, right now, this is on hold. This was put forth about 2 years ago. The community had some real questions and concerns about the plan. There was a plan for a small hotel there. There was a plan for medical office buildings. This is all around New York Presbyterian, Hudson Valley Hospital. And the town board heard from the community, and one thing for sure is that the hotel is no longer in the plan. That was really one of the concerns that the residents had there, because the area is very residential. It's not really that commercial around the hospital. So they're doing a scale down and phasing of that, but somewhere along the way, some of those underutilized parcels will be occupied. And we want to make it sort of a center for health. And that doesn't mean just for hospitals or doctors. It could also be physical therapy things, things to help you with, even a gym, things for seniors to either like senior daycare, things like that are related to healthcare and well-being of people, physical well-being. The next slide is, CBA. So we actually have a couple of things happening here. Coming up in the next 2 weeks, I don't know how many of you go to the Portland Town Center when we've been there last, but we are opening on the 11th, a Haagen-Dazs ice cream store. And the following week, what surrounds the Haagen-Dazs is a company called Dog House, HAUS. They sell specialized sausages and things, and they have 26 different kinds of beer on tap. Beer. So those will be opening up soon. The malls, both Portland Crossing and Portland Town Center, really considering the pandemic and considering the way retail has gone over the last couple of years, they're doing quite well. Their vacancy rate is well below what the average would be in the area. And there's also a proposal that it's been informally presented to the town board. The town board seems receptive to it. I don't know how far it'll get, but a proposal for a small hotel in the area next to Pikes Plaza on Route 6, if you know where that is. You know where the Burger King is, and then there's next to that there's that empty lot where there used to be an old house that burned down. That's where they're looking to put a little sort of a small motel, maybe 50 rooms or so. That would help us with taking it away from the area that was in the mod, and that hotel would not only service people who might come in from out of town to visit a sick one in the hospital or something like that. You also have up the hill from there a development known as Jacobs Hill, which is primarily senior citizen living. And a lot of those are small. They're 1 or 2 bedrooms. So if you had 3 or 4 children and they come in for the holidays, instead of being cramped in there, you have this little hotel right down the road. So it's a good thing. The town has been looking to have a small hotel for a long time. I don't know how many of you, it's happened to me where, we're having a wedding or an anniversary party or something, and we invite 30 or 40 people and 20 of them are from out of town. And they have, I don't have that much room in my house for all of them. And they have to stay 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes away from us. And that's why there's definitely that need. Let's see. The next one, the waterfront. So the waterfront sustainability district. The exciting thing here is I'm sure many of you or all of you know about the quarry site. And the town's been working for several years with a gentleman who's got an outfit called Cortland Pitch. And I think this is really good for particularly with education. And you have, athletics and everything. He's going to build 2 indoor recreational facilities geared for soccer and lacrosse. Very state of the art. It's going to have an upper level with balcony. So when you go to watch your child practice, you're not standing in a wet or cold field. You're in an enclosed area, and you've got seating. Sort of like stadium seating, so you can actually look down and watch the practice go on. He's going to have a small snack bar there. There'll be other amenities as well. And he's also, part of his deal is that he will allow the town, and I think we can include the school district in that, to use it free of charge for certain events and times and days where he's willing to work with all of us matches to do that. He's also going to, jointly with the town, we're going to build another outdoor facility for soccer and lacrosse. The Little League field that's up there now is going to be upgraded. Then as you go down from there, and as you probably know, I think when I was here last year, we had just gotten a grant from the federal government, the 3.2 million, which the town is matching. That's going to bring a roadway, drainage, some parking, some subdued lighting down into the quarry site. And at the lower part of the quarry site, there are two proposals that are floating around right now. One is for a hard cider producer. It's somebody who's already in business. They're right now producing, they're like all over the place. They're producing the cider in one place, storing it in a different place, distributing it from the third place. They want to consolidate all that, have a little tap room, and they like to be on the river. So they're very into that. The other proposal that's there's actually two other partial ones. One of them is for a small water park with zip lines, rock climbing on the cliff that's in the quarry, scuba diving, kayaking, and activities like that. And then the other proposal is, I don't know how many of you have been to the old St. Patrick's School, which has been taken, converted into an art center. It's beautiful. What the Makiko, I can't say her last name, I'm not sure her first name, Makiko from let me get this one. Kino Seiko Art Center. She preserved so much of what was inside that building and just did a terrific job. And it's beautiful. And she's looking at that site as well to make perhaps a sculpture garden or something, to make a little passive recreation area. And then the town wants to open up, there is a little beach there, and clear that up. And we're still trying to figure out what to do with the old towers that are there from the old quarry operation. But there's a lot going on there. There's also, we've been working with the county on the possibility of taking the county sewer line from in front of the treatment plant, which is where Portland Colonial is, and bringing that line all the way down to Antsville Circle, which would allow some development there along Route 9, as well as perhaps another hotel or conference center where Table 9 now is, because the owner there has expressed interest in doing something like that. But again, without sewers, you can't do that. So hopefully, I'm going to be a grandfather come January. Hopefully that happens before my grandson's up here talking to you about something. But those are things that we're working on, and I'm sure you all know that things, particularly in government, they don't necessarily go very quickly. We have a lot of rules and regulations and public disclosures we have to do, and as was Supervisor Puglisi, Supervisor Becker, and the town board, they really put great emphasis on public input. And so even with the quarry, we had a meeting just Monday night with a group mostly from Verplank that are listening to these proposals and giving us our feedback to the community, because we don't want to put something there that the community is not going to want. We all would like these things, but we have to be cognizant of, traffic, health concerns, the environment, things like that. So that's why things, I think, take a long time, because we're not just going to come up with a plan and say, this is it and do it. And I'm sure you folks being in the business you're in know how that goes. It takes time. And I know it gets frustrating to the general public. It gets frustrating to people who come forward with a proposal, who think, well, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Why can't we just do it tomorrow? And it's not the way things work. And again, there's pros and cons to that. I kind of think it's good that government moves slow, because it gives people an opportunity to stand up and voice their point of view about what the government is trying to do. And I think that's it. I have some other things, all these fast facts, but interesting thing, I was at a presentation about a month ago. The 2020 census is out. Portland's population looked up like about 700 or 800 people. I don't know how they really figured this out, but anyway, we have about 700 people, which is better than a lot of areas around the state which have lost population. But we're working with the county planning department to get those figures, because one of the things when we're trying to sell a business to come here, to locate here, is to talk about the median income of our households, to talk about the level of education of our population, and to talk about these, all the socioeconomic and demographic figures that are important to a business. They need to know that, and they need to have that interest. And the one thing about Portland that I have found, as I brought up people from New York City, commercial brokers and things, or brought them up from even down in White Plains, most people don't know we exist here. They really have no idea that there's a town of Portland, that it has all of this great opportunity and all of this wealth of talent and ability, And it's, you know, it's my job and everybody's job to kind of get out there and sort of beat the bushes and get potential businesses to recognize that and take a look at us. Because I think if they take a look at us and learn more about us, they'll be here. So with that, I'll take any questions. And I want to wish you all happy holidays too.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
Question?
Any opportunities where the ShopRite used to be? The old shop?
Yes, we'll have to announce it. I forgot that. I think it's in my slide presentation now. Yes. How can I put this? We've been working with you will know the name of this. It's a brand that you know. It's an internationally known brand.
Okay.
It's similar to what a supermarket is. We are happy it's not going to be a warehouse or other things that were proposed for that site. But they're very, they submitted their plans to the town, so they're going forward.
Okay.
They're just not ready to make a public announcement yet as to their name and so forth. And we have to respect their,
Okay.
but it's coming. And the interesting thing is they're not going to use all of that space. They're going to reconfigure it. And the additional space, we are working with them on some, I think, interesting and sort of inviting sort of entertainment type things that could go along with what they do, complementary, and at the same time. So for instance, I don't know how you are, but I don't really like to shop. So if I'm going shopping with somebody, let them shop and let me go somewhere else where I can occupy my time for a little. And that's what would come out. But there will be, it may be sooner than I think, probably before the end of the year. We will know the name and yeah.
Great.
No ice skating place?
Not yet. No.
Darn.
That was Linda
I know.
suggested that, and Richard Becker too said the same thing. He would love to get ice skating. I will tell you, it's an interesting story. So, you know, when I first came aboard about 2 years ago, Supervisor Polisi asked me, you know, she wanted a skating rink. So when I was working with the county, we turned over the operation of the ice casino down at Wright Playland to a private operator named Sean Coppola. His outfit is called, I don't know, American Skating Centers or something. He operates about 25 of these around the East Coast. So I went to see him and I said, you know, come to Portland. And he said, he's looked at it several times. And he goes, the problem you have is when you want to build one of these ice skating centers, they put what is it? In my day, it was called a compass, right? You put it down and you draw this circle. And he goes, the problem you have, as much as you guys love the Hudson River and how beautiful it is, we don't count any of the population on the other side of that river as part of our market because we just don't think they're going to come across. So he claims there's not enough critical mass to build something here. So I don't know, but we'll keep trying. And we added 700 people, I should know. I got half of them are skaters. Yes, sir.
The communities surrounding us are building walkways on the Hudson. What's the town of Portland? Are they doing anything, considering it, doing it? Because they are very pleasant to have in, you know, as
Yeah.
seen in the surrounding.
Well, we can certainly do it where we own the land, like around the quarry site, and that's part of this master plan with quarry site. And the person building the aquatic park wants to build a little waterfront. Then you're gonna have to go past Indian Point. Because ideally, there is a little one near Ansville and then it's at the Peekskill. And you can now go, you know, where the factory is, they completed that. You can go by Lentz Cove and then it stops because of Indian Point. So the town's been talking to Hope Tech about freeing up some of that and maybe even having them build it across there. That would connect it to the quarry site. Then we have some private owned, just really 2 private landowners who, if we can get consent and agreements and easements, you can take it there to where Steamboat Dock is and all the way along the waterfront there till you get to the Viking Boatyard. Now, I don't know where you go from there, but at least, you know, you could start that process because it would be a wonderful thing. It really would. The river, the Hudson River is just, to me, it's a gem. And it's a shame that you don't have as much access as people should have. And one of the great things Portland has that a lot of communities along the Hudson don't is the train line is far in. So you don't have to cross railroad tracks to get to the river. You know, when you go down to Dobbs Ferry or Ardsley or something, you know, the river's there and the train's where I'm standing. So you,
I know the wheels of government turn slowly, and this campaign is what, maybe a year old now?
which one?
The,
Oh, yes,
Real life ones.
yes, yep.
do you feel like the campaign is being successful, or is it too soon to tell? Like, what's one of your biggest successes that you've been able to?
Well, I mean, the success is the two businesses to the Portland Town Center came through the ad campaign. I'll be honest with you, a lot of times when we buy an ad, most of the calls I get are from other entities saying, can we sell you an ad? So I say, no, that wasn't the purpose of our ad. But it takes time. People don't know us, and we were hurt by the pandemic because we were gonna roll this out and then we put it off for a while. And I said, we can't keep putting it off. We rolled it out during the pandemic via Zoom. There wasn't the ability for me or other people to go and make personal calls on the brokers and things like that. So hopefully this thing wanes enough that this spring, I can go and really, I have brought people up here mostly from the White Plains area, brokers and developers, and driven them through and everything. So we've had a few things. We had a couple with the mod. So I think the campaign works just to raise the awareness so that if I do not want to go where somebody hears, and it's not like the town's spending a lot of money on this, just so you know. I think it's maybe $5,000 we spent for the whole campaign. So
Thanks.
anything else? Well, everybody enjoy their holiday. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I go out? Can I go all the way up there, but do I have to go out this way? I don't mind. I can use the exercise.
It's slow.
What?
It's slow.
Oh, okay, I'll go out. Thanks.
All right, before we move on, there was one update that I forgot about. If you can comment on our credit rating, on the school credit rating, we just got a very favorable report.
Yeah, sure, thank you. Due to the fact that we issue a 1 year plan, we have to go to S&P and get a credit report. The credit report was very positive, even with the loss of money from Indian Point. I was able to convince them that we're in good shape, and that we should continue to have the same credit rating. So we have the same credit rating. That saves the district over $150,000 in interest.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Thank you very much, Enrique. That brings us to our audience comments on agenda items. Do we have anybody signed up for agenda items? We do not. All right, so that will bring us to our committee reports.
Facilities met last week, but we're actually going to do a presentation in. Sorry. Facilities met last week, but we are going to do a presentation in the next board meeting. But we went through some of the, the issues or the concerns about the AV system in the auditorium at the high school and the middle school. Went through some plans for updates at BV. And then we also went through our EPC project, that's what we'll be presenting next time. But I just want to let you know the committee met, and we'll have more detail in at the next BOE meeting.
The safety committee met on the 19th of November. The nature of the safety committee, we can't really discuss a lot of that in public session for the safety obviously reasons. But some of the things we talked about were the security vestibules. There was one IT issue that they were looking to finally close that loop, and so the security vestibules will be 100% hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We talked about the PA systems, and I think there's a lot of overlap between safety and facilities.
Thank you. Since not actually a committee, but strategic planning is progressing, and I just wanted to remind the community to fill out those surveys. We should have either gotten a snail mail postcard, everybody should have gotten one of those, as well as emails, landing links. And there's a dedicated web link as well, where you can find out more about the strategic planning process, how you can participate. And these surveys are due back December 6th. So please fill those out. We want to hear from you, whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids, whether you have kids that have graduated, whether you still have kids that are coming in, whoever. If you work in the district, we want to hear from you.
Another part of that is that as part of the strategic plan, we're doing interviews right now, one-on-one interviews with people. So if you have not signed up for an interview or you didn't get to participate in a focus group, please consider following the links to sign up for those as well. Because it's a really important way of us finding out how the community is feeling about the school district and what their wishes are and what they would like to see happen.
So we dream big for our students in the future.
So if somebody goes on and they schedule or they sign up to be interviewed, who should they expect to be interviewing them, and how do they contact them, and when does that take place?
So what will happen is your name will be sent to Education Elements, and they're kind of masterminding the whole project for us. And it would go on a spreadsheet, and people who are on the committees, it could be somebody on the steering committee, somebody on the advisory or planning teams, would be asked to they periodically ask people to take a look at this list of people who are willing to interview, and then select if they're available to do the times that are working for that person. And then they just set up the time with that person and there you go.
And the people interviewing are just members of the community that
The
are
members
part
of
of
the
the
community.
committees.
They could be, the members of our committees though are also teachers and
Yep.
administrators. And
Right.
so, it could be a community member, or it could be somebody who's actually employed at the school.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so it will be a stakeholder then.
Yep.
Part of our paper. And the interviews are via video. You don't have to meet in person, so it's quick and easy. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes max if you have a lot to say. All right, any other committee reports or questions before we move on? That brings us to board comments and new business, which sort of covered already. Anybody have any other board comments and new business? All right, so that will bring us to our audience comments on non-agenda items. Carmen, do we have signups for non-agenda items? We have 4. So let me read the introduction. Because we feel community engagement is important, the Hendrick Hudson School Board of Education welcomes public comment during this portion of the meeting. Please note that the public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. The board is here to listen. Please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns and questions this evening. This is because the board trustees and the superintendent take your comments seriously and want to have sufficient time to thoughtfully process your comments and to research issues if need be. We will consider your comments as we deliberate at future meetings, or we'll have the proper staff member follow up with you at a later date as appropriate. To maintain an orderly meeting, the board has allotted 15 minutes for each public comments period, which may be extended by board consensus. Guidelines for those wishing to address the board are as follows. Each speaker should sign in with the district clerk prior to the public comment section and will be called in the order in which they have signed up. We would ask that groups designate one individual to speak on their behalf. It is not permitted to cede your time to another speaker. When called, please step up to the podium and begin by stating your name and affiliation if applicable. Letters, petitions, or other written material should be handed to the district clerk prior to your comments. All comments must be directed to the board. Each speaker is permitted 3 minutes for their comments and must be recognized by the board president. The board vice president will be timing the comments, will give a 30-second warning to the speaker with a yellow card and indicate when the speaker's time is finished with a red card. The board may limit repetitive comments in order to give time to participants wishing to speak on varied topics, as well as to maintain meeting efficiency. Although we take personnel concerns and individual student matters very seriously, the board is not permitted to address these in open session as per state and federal privacy laws. We would ask that you use appropriate administrative channels for these items. The board expects comments to be made without interference from the audience. and in a civil manner so that our meeting can serve as a model of appropriate civil discourse for our students. In the unlikely event that the meeting becomes unruly, the board may recess the meeting until order can be restored. Please remember, if you prefer not to participate in the public comments portion of the meeting, written comments to the Board of Education may be submitted in lieu of speaking. Please see the agenda or the district website for contact information. We'll now begin our public comments period on non-agenda items. Carmen, who is the first speaker?
The first speaker tonight is Alicia Benamaro.
Hi, my name is Alicia Rivero, and I have 2 children currently enrolled in BB Elementary. I'm here today to express my concern about the negative impact of COVID protocols on children, families, and on our overall school community. I, along with many other parents, am concerned for their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. This pandemic has now spanned 3 school years. Our children have one childhood, and they are being robbed of the experiences they need and deserve. Activities that enhance academic and social development have been canceled or gone virtual for far too long, and it is time to resume them. Field trips, plays, concerts, educational fairs, sports games, etc. Time is of the essence. A recent study from the scientists out of Brown University found a 23% decline in cognitive development among elementary age children since the start of the pandemic. People are social beings and need to feel a sense of community. We, the parents, have been shut out of school buildings for nearly 2 years. There are currently many parents who have never even set foot in their school or never met their child's teacher or principal. This is wrong and is perpetuating a feeling of isolation, not the sense of belonging that the district claims to be seeking. Many other districts have reopened their doors to parents, and it's time that we do the same. Collectively, parents feel extremely uninformed. We have the right to know and be continuously updated on the COVID protocols in our school buildings with which our children are being expected to comply. Children are coming home each day with conflicting information and frankly, sometimes disturbing stories about what is going on at school. I must also address the increasing fear of many parents about vaccines being administered at elementary schools without proper consent. Although I do believe the district will exercise better judgment than to do such a thing, I am hereby publicly declaring as the parent and legal guardian of my children that I do not consent to them being given vaccines of any kind by the school, its agents, or any outside party. In conclusion, our kids are being traumatized by the perpetuation of this pandemic. It's no secret that mental health issues, depression, and even teen suicides are on the rise. The cure cannot be worse than the disease. It is unknown the long-term effects of all of this. Continuous masking and social distancing instills fear into children and divides them. Lack of parental involvement provides missed opportunities to strengthen the parent-child relationship. Surely you owe it to the children of this district to take a hard look at the impact of the things I've mentioned. It is time to start thinking for ourselves and stop blindly following the state funding and the direction of government officials who have their own agendas, not the best interests of our kids at mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Carmen, who's the next speaker?
Next speaker is Mariella Caraswillo.
Good evening.
Mariella Ferris-Willow, mother of 3 little. I have a speech prepared, but I just wanted to say something about the superintendent report. Margaret, Dr. Ruler mentioned that Marlene will be doing a walkthrough on building needs. Just curious, if there are building needs and or renovations required to fit the spaces for younger children, how can this be achieved in 8 months, September, if we couldn't get staff in an auditorium in 2 years? Something to think about. So on to my speech. In the recent strategic planning interviews, one of the questions asked was, what would you like to see the district known for being the best at in the country? This, right here in this room, is where we have the opportunity to be different and better. I did my research and I see that you are following the norm with your rules, 3 minutes, no repetitive comments, will not respond, et cetera, et cetera. But why, I ask? Why can't we set the example for higher standards? I watched the November 9 Town of Portland board meeting, our municipality, and I was impressed. Each speaker went to the podium, mask optional, and spoke to the board with back and forth dialogue, eye contact, interaction, and question and answer. The board members were unmasked as well.
It was such a productive meeting with the open dialogue, and I learned a lot that I otherwise would not have known. I completely understand you may not want to spend your Wednesday night in a 3-hour meeting, but I truly think it's possible to have open discussions that surpass 15 minutes but don't exceed 45 minutes. The 3 minutes sit back down with zero interaction is so sterile and cold. And if you limit it to 15 minutes and no repetitive comments, you're unaware of the volume of concern. If you want to have healthy, positive relationships with your community, you should reconsider the structure of these meetings. In regards to mask mandates, there's another opportunity for us to do better. You're following Department of Health and CDC guidelines, but are technically not forced to. Perhaps you get a hefty check for doing so, who knows? But why not be the first district to implement parent choice? The choice of parents and our students to mask or unmask. We are all grown adults that can respect each other's point of view if given the chance. As for the kids, we have already witnessed that some kids still prefer wearing a mask even when they are told they can remove it. 5, 6, or 9 years old, they know what they want. Last spring, masks were optional outdoors, and it worked. On these 2 points, unorthodox or atypical board meetings, and a parent's choice to choose, it could all come together organically, and everyone could be happy, resulting in a less hostile environment. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Scott Keith Passman.
I have a document to submit.
Thank you.
This is a report from the Red Cross. Board of Education has stated that its policy of vaccine recommendations and mandatory mask wearing are based on guidance from the New York State Health Department. But increasingly, we find that these agencies have provided false data and unreliable guidance, which have put the lives of millions of Americans in danger. Their policies, without exception, always conclude that the drugs that they deceptively call vaccines, combined with social distancing, lockdowns, and mask wearing, are the only solution for the so-called COVID-19 pandemic. It is incumbent upon this board to now consider if these agencies, given their track record, are qualified to be the only source of information and guidance for the board's policy. No one of good conscience willing to serve the true interests of the parents and students of this district can limit themselves to one source when so many questions still exist and so much good information is coming from the private sector on the treatment and prevention of this disease. Proverbs 12:15 says, "A fool is wise in his own judgment, but the one who seeks counsel is wise." Members of the board, I can't think of a time in my life when wisdom, true wisdom, was in such need as it is right now. Your position on both the mask and vaccine mandates will affect thousands of lives for a generation, and it can either reflect your arrogance, your ignorance, or true wisdom and humility. True wisdom will acknowledge that the unvaccinated are not spreading diseases around. There's simply no proof of that anywhere in the scientific record. There's no proof of that. Quite to the contrary, the unvaccinated have stronger immune systems now and don't get the variants of COVID-19. It is the vaccinated who are now filling America's hospitals and morgues around the world. Last time I was here, I told you that the PCR test is a complete fraud. I hope all of you research this for yourselves like you say you do research. Considering your responsibility to this community, you owe us this much to do some research. Fact, the Red Cross, the document I handed you, announced in June 2021 publication that it does not accept the convalescent plasma from the vaccinated because their blood does not possess the adequate antibody levels. Fact, the Zelenko protocol created by Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, a New Yorker, prevents COVID-19 with simple nutrition. It should be considered by school nurses and incorporated into school nutritional programs. Fact, a simple post-infection cure to COVID-19 exists and should be made available to school nurses across our district. The cure is called ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and can be obtained through americasfrontlinedoctors.org. Lastly, you have no statutory authority whatsoever to enforce a mandate when no such federal or state law has been passed. Mandates are unconstitutional. Students and parents are citizens with all the rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution. I am now removing my mask and returning to my chair, and that will not constitute just cause for you to end or interrupt this meeting. Thank you for listening.
School policies that you have to wear a mask on premises. If you do not have a mask on, you can either exit.
I follow the Constitution, not school policy. I'm a citizen of the United States. I do not have to follow school policy. I'm a citizen of the United States with
I'd like to
rights.
declare a recess until the gentleman determines to wear his mask.
Okay, because we can not have audience members complying with the school code of conduct and guidelines at this time in a timely manner, we are forced to end the meeting. Can I have a motion to end our meeting, please? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.